나는 되게 힘들었을 때 너한테 진짜 많이 물었어. 너는 뭐가 인생의 낙이야?
그지?
너
많이
인생의
물어봤어.
낙이
Oh, that's devastating. Oh. Wow. Oh. Yeah, that's rough. Whew. And you know, the thing is that, like, yes, Han is happy now, as he keeps saying. He's doing a lot better. I do not believe that he has mastered the skill of, you know, building for joy rather than building away from pain in, you know, a year. I just don't think that's just very unlikely. You know, I think he's still learning that. I think he's done a lot of work in whatever areas it is. He's clearly done a lot of work to be able to feel so much more stable. But like that, when you're at the point when you're starting to ask the people around you, what is the joy in your life? That is a rough point. And when you're asking that a lot, that question would frighten me. If one of my friends kept asking me that question, I would be scared. I would be scared. I would be talking to them about suicidality. You know, I'm gonna teach y'all a good, quick, useful trick. And by trick, I mean ways to save somebody's life. A lot of people think that if they were worried that a friend or somebody else is dealing with suicidality, that they should not bring it up. The same thing with self-harm. They think I should not bring it up because then it's going to make them think about it and make them like more likely to do it, which is not the case. People who are struggling with ideation, being asked, you know, ways to help support them, is not going to be the thing that like triggers them into doing something. A lot of people also just don't know how to. They don't know how to ask the question. So the like really pivotal, useful way to, you know, if somebody asks you a question or says something that concerns you. So if I had a friend who kept asking me, hey, what's your joy in life? You know, they asked me once, they asked me twice. It's like, okay, they're like asking some questions. But if it's clear that they're not doing well and they're asking me this question multiple times, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to say to them like, hey, this might not apply to you, in which case, like, that's fine. But when people say things like that, sometimes when people say something like that or ask something like that, what it means is that they are struggling with suicidality. And I really love you and I really care about you. So I want to ask you if that is something that you are struggling with right now or in general recently. You make it be a yes or no question. You ask up front. You ask about the word itself. You don't ask like, are you doing okay? You don't move around the subject. You don't try to like hedge it. You ask very upfront, direct. Sometimes when people say something like that, they are struggling with suicidality. Is that something you are currently struggling with? And then there's, you know, a lot of things that come after that. You can, you know, do a variety of assessing for resources, assessing for means, assessing for intent, et cetera, and so forth. But that's how you bring up the question. And yeah, if somebody was repeatedly asking me that question, I would be asking them about suicidality right back, 100%. Yeah.
뭐냐? 너는 뭐가 행복하냐?
표정까지 기억나.
그때 되게 내 기준에선 사실 그게 왜 행복한 건지는 모르는 답변들이 많이 나왔는데 지금에서야 깨달아. 아, 이런 것들이 되게 행복하구나.
난 그때 뭐 큰 거 얘기 안 하지 않았었어?
너도 그냥 이제 가끔 뭐 정인이랑 뭐 밖에 나가서 순대국밥에 너무 그냥 그거니까 너무
소소한
일상적이고 소소한 거니까. 근데 내가 그런 소소한 것들을
I'm amazed he got out of that. I'm so glad he did. I don't know how he did. I don't know what he did. Maybe he was going to, weekly therapy. Maybe he found a good cocktail of medications. Maybe he just figured it out on his own. I am amazed that he, especially during 2023, when there was so much pressure on Five Star, when there was so much pressure on, doing things well, when the Maniac tour was going on and like things were so hectic and chaotic, like, community resiliency does a lot for things. And obviously, they also lost a friend to suicide in 2023. And that is something that's really devastating. It's also something that sometimes you see the people around you reacting to something like that, and it motivates you to try to figure out how to not be in a similar situation yourself. Obviously that's total speculation, but what he's talking about and the level that he's talking about right now, knowing that they are not going to discuss the worst of a situation on something like Two Kids Room. We knew Han was doing bad, and this just tells me that he was doing really bad. And I think it's really fucking impressive. Whatever he was doing to move away from that space, it's really fucking impressive, considering how much has been going on in their lives, since forever, frankly.
안 했었으니까.
그지. 뭔가 그냥 알려줄 수는 없는 부분이고.
Yeah, you can.
그렇다고
You
싫어하는데
just,
억지로 시킬 수도 없는 부분이고.
그치.
You can teach it, you can't force someone to do it. But I wouldn't expect Seungmin to know how to teach it. He has not yet gotten his master's degree in, therapeutic studies, though I think he should consider it. I maintain Seungmin would be an excellent therapist.
그래서 그 기간이 참 짧지도 않았고 되게
엄청 길었지.
근데 언젠가는 끝날 줄 알았어. 지금 요새는 되게 보기 좋아.
나는 지금 너무 행복해. 그러니까 그때를 되돌아보면 뭔가 그거였어. 내가 나 같은 애가 한 명 더 있었으면 내가 정말 좋고, 내 어둘 때 시절에 한 명 있었으면 난 걔가 진짜 불편했을 것 같아. 나라면 되게 불편했을 것 같거든. 근데 그냥 이제 지켜봐주고
This is going so
불편했을
fast.
것 같아. 나라면
And I'm trying to read while
내
processing.
어둘 때 시절에 한 명 있었으면 난 걔가 진짜 불편했을 것 같아. 나라면 되게 불편했을 것 같거든. 근데 그냥 이제 지켜봐주고 뭐 잘 도와주고 해가지고 지금은 괜찮아졌잖아. 그래서 그것도 고맙고 이제 잘해야지. 이제 예전처럼 그.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like he's acknowledging that, like, a lot of what did it was, having that community support, was having people watch over him, even people who didn't really understand him or didn't really understand what he was going through, being really dedicated to taking care of him. Yeah, I mean, community support really, really goes a long way.
그러지 말고 정말 잘해야지.
아니 그냥 그런 생각도 하지 마. 그냥 지금처럼 하면 돼.
난 지금 너무 좋아. 지금 뭔가 너무.
I love him. Oh.
고맙고 이제 잘해야지. 이제.
Yeah, because this is devastating, right? And this, again, we come back to, like, I think Han is clearly doing worlds better. I don't think that he's, like, necessarily doing great. I think there's still a lot of work to be done for him, or else he's going to be at risk of, relapse or collapse into that emotional state. Because, like, even thinking about this, right, I'm really curious about, this idea of, like, almost the members took care of me and now I have to be better. I can't go back to what I was at before, right? The level, there's like guilt, and like there's this unjustified guilt behind that. There's this level of shame behind that. There's this perfectionism behind that. There's almost a self-hatred, potentially, even, right? Even if it's a hatred of a past self, or at least a severe dislike of a past self, a distrust of a past self. Even talking about having a kid like my old self would be really uncomfortable for me, right? Like, this disconnect between who he is now and who he used to be and why that happened. This attempt to dissociate himself from his past. That's still a lot of strong difficulties, right? That's still indicating like there's a lot going on in his mindset and his beliefs about who he is and how he's meant to move through the world that are not like healthy, adaptive, self-compassionate kind beliefs. There's still work to be done there. And I would expect that, right? Talking about the level of low that he got to, which sounds a lot like what happens with burnout, but talking about the level of low that he got to, I would not expect somebody to be like, graduated from therapy, as it were, by this point. And I love him saying this.
예전처럼 그러지 말고 정말 잘해야지.
And
그런 생각.
Seungmin just being like, no, like, you don't owe us shit. Like, you don't need to think like that. You don't need to think like, I don't need to be that person anymore. I need to, prove myself. I need to be better for us. Like, don't do that.
생각도 하지 마. 그냥 지금처럼 하고.
Just like keep
안
being
하지,
happy.
너무 좋아.
Just all we want is for you to be happy. That's really lovely.